Hello everyone. So today I'll discuss ion exchange process, and as discussed earlier there are three methods for removal of hardness. One was zeolite, which we discussed in one of the videos. This is ion exchange process, and then there is one more, which is lime soda process, that we'll discuss in the next one. So today my focus would be to explain you how ion exchange process is used to soften the water. If the hardness is present in the water, how are you going to remove that is ion exchange process. So obviously the definition is this only, that it is a process which is used to remove hardness of water using ion exchange resin. So what is ion exchange resin then? Obviously it is a resin, and when it is a resin, that means it's a type of polymer, and the name itself suggests that this polymer is capable of exchanging its ion. That is why you call it as ion exchange resin. So basically ion exchange process is the process which we are going to use to remove the hardness of water using ion exchange resin, where resin is that kind of polymer here which is capable of exchanging its ions. So just like zeolite was represented as Na2Z, wherein Na was the ion which it was able to exchange. Here it could be any ion. So based on which ion it is exchanging, it could be of two types: cation exchange resin and anion exchange resin. The name again suggests that this type of resin is capable of exchanging its cation present in the resin with the cation present in the water. Similarly, this type of resin is capable of exchanging its anion. So on classification wise, you may say that it is of two types. Now coming to the detail of what is ion exchange resin basically. So as I said, it is a polymer. Polymer means polymer. Poly means many, mer means parts. So which is having many part, that means which is having monomers involved in it. Monomers combine together to give you large molecular weight compound, a long chain compound, which is known as polymer. So this resin basically, it's insoluble, it is cross-linked, obviously long chain, organic, microporous, and it is having functional groups, and those functional groups are actually capable of exchanging the ions. So it could be a polymer, just like this polymer structure is drawn. Now this is nothing but styrene divinyl benzene copolymer. Now if I start with the polymer, I hope now you understand what is polymer, which is having many parts, which is having monomers. Now what is the meaning of co? Obviously when the monomers are different, it is a copolymer. When the monomers are same, it is a homopolymer. Now here it is a copolymer, that means the monomers are different. Styrene and divinyl benzene are the two monomers. So there are lot many examples, but this example specially which is shown is styrene divinyl benzene. So if you remember, on benzene there is a styrene means vinyl group, CH double bond CH2 group, and divinyl means on the para position top and bottom there should be a vinyl group. So that is CH double bond CH2 group. So this is styrene divinyl benzene copolymer. Cation exchange resin, the first type, as we said that it is capable of exchanging its cation. So which cation it has? It has H. So what you can do is you can represent the cation exchange resin as RH, where R would be your polymer, which is big network, and H is that cation which is going to be exchanged. Now obviously this cation comes from an acidic portion, like the functional group, those who are acidic in nature, they may give you H plus ions. So based on that, if the functional group is comparatively weak, you may call it as a weak acid cation exchange resin. If it is sulfonic acid, it is comparatively strong. So cation exchange resin can be further classified in weak, maybe moderately strong, and then strong, depending on the type of functional group it is attached to. Let me explain you one more time what I am talking about is a copolymer. So how to make it is very easy. You just write an alternate chain of CH2, CH, CH2, CH, CH2, and like that. And whenever you have a CH, just draw a benzene ring with it. So on every CH, you have to draw a benzene ring. Please bear with my hand writing or drawing. Then CH, then CH2, next turn is of CH, then CH2, and the chain continues. And whenever you have CH, just draw a structure like this. Then you have CH2, CH, CH2, and it goes on like this. So now I have a CH, so I have to draw a benzene ring. Now this is nothing but one molecule which I was talking about, R. So when I have to represent RH, I can anytime write or draw it like a polymer matrix, which is quite insoluble and stable, and on that there is a functional group. So let's say if I want to make it as a cation exchange resin, then these are the 4 positions pair up wherein you have to write your functional group. So let's say if I write SO3 minus H plus all of the 4 points, that means this structure is now capable of exchanging its cation. So it could be a cation exchange resin. So you can represent it like this also. So it's just a mere representation of RH, and that goes with ROH also. So obviously OH, that means basic, right? So any substance which is having a basic functional group. Let me go to the next slide. So anion exchange resin would be like, again, strongly basic and weakly basic, depending on which functional group is attached. Now normally quaternary ammonium salts are considered as strong comparatively to that of primary secondary. So Nr3 plus OH minus can be considered as a strong anion exchange resin. So if I would like to draw the structure of ROH, R remains same, styrene divinyl benzene copolymer. What I have to change only is this functional group, which are written at the 4 positions here, right? So what you have to do is you just have to write Nr3 plus OH minus here, and like that. So it goes like this, and then you can simply say that now this is the structure of anion exchange resin, which is capable of exchanging its anion. So I think now you are able to understand that it's very simple to denote RH and ROH. Now this is nothing but some images of ion exchange resin. They could be present in a bead form, like you can see here. They are very porous structure, microporous structure. They can be in the form of crystal, powder, and like that. So basically, how are you going to soften the water? So you have to allow the hard water to come in contact with the bed of resin. Obviously those hardness producing ions, which are calcium and magnesium, they have to get exchanged. So what happens is the cation, which is like RH, the cation of your cation exchange resin, it is exchanging cation of the cation present in the water, which is like hardness producing cation. Similarly, anion, which is like ROH, is going to target to the anion present in water. So how are they going to do it? Obviously it will make R2Ca and plus twice of H plus, while this will make RCl plus OH minus. So at the end, if you see, cation exchange resin is going to exchange the cation present in water, anion exchange resin is going to exchange the anion present in water. So overall you may say that the principle is reversible exchange of ions of resin. Ions of resin means both resin with ions present in impurities of water. So if an impurity which is like calcium chloride is present, so calcium is exchanged by cation exchange resin and chlorine is exchanged by anion exchange resin. So let us go in detail of the process. Now this is how you are supposed to spray your hard water from top. Now when you spray the hard water, it will come in contact with the cation exchange resin. So let's say your cation exchange resin is RH and the substance dissolved is magnesium sulfate. So it is going to react with that magnesium, is going to absorb that magnesium, and meanwhile H plus will be released. Now this water comes down and here there is a bed of gravels. I hope you remember in zeolite process also there was a bed of gravel. Gravels are nothing but the coarse pebble, the small pebbles, which are meant for filtration and which actually gives the base to this bed so that these particle does not fall down. So it just allows the filtration. So the water will come down. Now which water I am talking about? The water which is having H plus at the cations and all anions are still present in the water, that will come down. So your hardness, which is like calcium magnesium, is actually removed here only at the very first stage. So if you would like to say that the water is softened, yes, the water is softened here only at the very first stage. But I want to purify the water, I want to utilize the water for industrial purpose. Because I guess you remember that the zeolite process disadvantage was this only, that it did not treated anions. That's why ion exchange process is a better one, wherein you have one more container. So what happens, the water goes to the next side of the chamber, and when it falls from here, what happens, the positive ions are already exchanged, you have H plus only. Now the negative ions are left. Now if you represent it as ROH, and now you say that magnesium sulfate is present, so how are you going to write it? R2SO4 obviously, and obviously OH minus. You can balance the reaction like this. So what happens here, the anion of the anion exchange resin is exchanged with the anion present in the water as impurity. So those water, like that water, comes down. Again you have to place a bed of gravel here just to maintain that filtration purpose, and the water comes down. Now tell me which kind of water it is. Obviously soft water. In fact the soft water was here only, but this is extremely pure. You can call it as a demineralized water because it's having only H2O. H plus as anions, OH minus as cations, and that is why you call it as a demineralization process also, because you are getting demineralized water at the end. So now what happens is, as I said in the principle, that it is a reversible reaction. So that means we need to show the backward reaction also. And now if you go back here, you can see that there is a backward reaction possible here and here both. Why? Because as I said that at one point of time, this RH may get exhausted to R2Mg or R2Ca, because there is a limited amount of resin you are keeping here, right? So it is going to get exhausted at one point of time. Now, if it is exhausted and if you allow hard water to pass, obviously it's not going to exchange the ions, and the softening thing will not be done. So what you need to do? You need to regenerate your ion back, just like the way we did in zeolite process. So I want H plus here. So obviously any solution which gives me H plus can be easily utilized here, right? So normally acids are used here. Obviously acid solution give you H plus. So HCl, H2SO4 are majorly used. There are other acids like nitric acid which you cannot use because it's quite a strong oxidizing agent as well. Then you have other acids like formic acid and oxalic acid and phosphoric acid and all. They all have their problems. They are either very weak or they release some gases. So basically the safest acid which you can use is HCl or H2SO4. And likewise in here you have to use a base solution to regenerate anion exchange resin. Very simple is that, because you want OH minus ions. So normally NaOH or KOH is utilized in order to do so. NH4OH also is there, but that's very weak. So safest you can call NaOH as the main. Now this is what ion exchange process is all about. But then you can have one more addition to it. Like if you represent it as RH and ROH, I'll correct this. So now when you allow your impure water to come, cation exchanger is going to exchange the cation. Gravels are placed because of the filtration. The water comes down. Now this water contains H plus, this water contains anions, right? And now this will go to the second container. And here you are going to get your H2O, right? But then if you want to use this water in boilers, maybe in other industry purpose wherein you need to have a extremely pure water, then the third addition to this container could be a degasifier. D means removal of gas. So the container which is used to remove the dissolved gases. Yes, you heard it right, dissolved gases. That means if the water here contains those gases also, like dissolved oxygen, carbon dioxide, etc. So we can remove those dissolved gases also at the end using a degasifier. So here you are, in the first you are getting your soft water, here in the second you are getting your purified water, here in the third you have to remove the gases dissolved in water, right? So the degasifier majorly has 2-3 portions to it. First one is obviously a steam jacket. So from outside there is a coil which is rounded on the container, and it could be heated directly, or you can place a steam jacket wherein you have to allow steam to pass through it. Basically the aim is to increase the temperature. Simple, you have to increase the temperature because you want to heat the water, right? Now when the water comes here and the water is having some gas, let's say CO2 is dissolved in it, you have to remove that gas. How are you going to do? I guess you remember, when you increase the temperature, the solubility of gas decreases in liquid, right? So when I increase the temperature, the gas becomes less soluble, and when it becomes less soluble, it will start moving up, and at the top you may find a air vent, a hole from where you can evacuate the gas, right? Now this is degasifier. Now there is one more component to it, which is this, which are actually known as baffle plates, right? These are the baffle plates. Now this baffle plate is nothing but a metallic plate which is kept inside the container, and it is also having a very important use. Let's say if this is the container and you are allowing your water to come down and your water to go out. Meanwhile, your gases are also going out. You are heating it from outside. Imagine if there is no baffle plate inside. Then what will happen? The water molecule will fall and it will immediately be coming out. So basically, because of this baffle plate, the surface area is increased, right? So better, like uniform heating will take place. Because of that surface area, uniform heating will take place because these plates are also getting heated. Secondly, it will increase the retention time. Retention time of the molecule. The water is coming down, but if it is not allowing, like spending the time here, it may get come out from the container very easily, and in that duration it might not get heated. What we are doing, we are allowing the water to come here and it will come down slowly. It will move like this, then move like this, and then it will come up. So it is going to spend some time inside. So the time is increased. At the same time, plates are there, so surface area is increased, and it is obviously giving you uniform heating. So the molecule is properly getting heated here, and that is how it helps in removing of the gas properly. Secondly, these baffle plates could be of any design. It's not like this plain plates. You may increase the level like this, you may make it like this, or you may design. Basically designing of baffle plate is also important. You may use this like curved kind of design. Then the number of baffle plates also may vary. You may use a single plate in the entire container, or you may place 5 different type of baffle plate, etc, etc. So that's all part of chemical engineering. The basic funda lies that you have to remove the gas. It is a degasifier. And that's how I said that you're going to get demineralized water. And since it is demineralized water, the another name of ion exchange process is demineralization process. Now, with that, I would like to explain you that here first you have to get cation exchange, then you have to get anion exchange, and you cannot change the sequence. Like, you cannot place anion exchanger first and cation exchanger second. The sequence has to go like this only for better removal of the hardness. I'll tell you why. Like, if first cation exchanger is passed, your aim is done. In the very first container, the water is softened. Why would you like to increase one more step in order to remove the hardness? So the first point is, you need to treat cation first because that is what you want to remove. Secondly, imagine if this goes reverse and you allow anion exchanger to be here. So in spite of H plus, you will be having OH minus in the product, and all of the cations would be there. And what cations we are talking about? Majorly calcium, magnesium. Now imagine magnesium reacts with hydroxide and it always gets precipitated as magnesium hydroxide. And calcium reacts with hydroxide and it forms calcium hydroxide. So when this comes here, the water is comparatively basic and it is going to create trouble further. Either it is going to corrode, so corrosion is a big problem, or it is going to precipitate out, which is like magnesium hydroxide and all. And above all, your hardness is at risk because you have yet not removed the hardness. So basically, the sequence cannot be exchanged. Cation has to be removed first because that is what the aim of the process is, and the water becomes basic, which should not be treated. Acidic water does not have any problem. but basic water should not be treated, because basic water always induces some corrosion type of thing. So I think with that your process is quite clear to you. Now coming to one kind of animation I have found on one channel, so let me tell you how easy is that. The resin is ready to exchange. So this is very easy to understand. See, cation exchange is replaced by H plus, anion exchange replaced by OH minus. So H plus and OH minus are getting replaced here. Now the resin is used up. There are no more H plus and OH minus. That means resin is exhausted. So you need to regenerate it. And as I said, HCl solution is used and NaH solution is used. So from the animation, it is very clear that how this process is going on, right? So I'll skip. Now this is what it looks like, and again, like there are two containers, but then anyhow you can have a mixed bad deionization possible. That means in a single bed you can have a mixing of anion and cation exchange resin, or you can have one by one, like you have one cation followed by anion, and then regeneration also is done separately. So with that, I would like to tell you that mixed bed deionization is also possible. It is not like always you have to take two separate containers for cation and anion exchange resin. Now this is what we have discussed so far. I said that in cation exchange of bed, the cation is going to exchange with the cation present in water. So those hardnesses are removed in the very first container. The water containing that acidic H plus and the anions will go down to the next container. Next is going to exchange this OH minus with all of the anions present in water. It is going to absorb those anions and is going to release OH minus ions. And at the end, you are going to get your demineralized water. And if at all gases are present in the water, I hope you remember that you need to use a degasifier, which is an optional thing. And then once they are exhausted, you can regenerate it. Obviously, I need H back, so I have to use a solution which gives me H plus. Similarly, here I need OH back, so I have to give a solution which gives me OH. With that, we'll come to the end that what are the advantages. So if you look into with comparison to zeolite method, you can treat highly acidic water here. While in zeolite method, it was not there because it was destroying the zeolite bed. Here, it's not the problem. Similarly, water containing colored ions like iron and manganese were not able to utilize during zeolite because they were not generated easily. But here, regeneration is not a problem and it can be softened. So that is the advantage of this process. Obviously, lowest hardness. So the residual hardness here is very low. The water is left with around 2 ppm hardness, while in zeolite it was around 10 ppm of hardness. So in comparison to that, you may call it as an advantage of this process. And obviously, this one is the biggest advantage, that anions and cations both are removed here. So the basic problem of castic embrittlement, which is like brittleness of the material in presence of base, and corrosion are reduced to a large extent. This is basically a part of boiler trouble. So we can you can see a different video based on boiler trouble. And now coming to the disadvantages portion too, because like here turbid water, yes, poses somewhat of the problem. In zeolite process it was a limitation, it stopped working. But here it is not going to stop the process, but it is, yes, going to decrease the efficiency. It may clog the pores. Then the equipment is comparatively costly, and obviously the chemicals are comparatively costly. Monitoring here also is required, and yes, organic and bacterial impurities are not removed here. So like if any microorganism is present, there is no provision for that. We can go to RO. So in market, like ion exchange resin is available cation as Amberlite IR 120, Dovex 50, etc. And anion exchange resin is available as Amberlite 400 and Dovex 3, etc. So in market it is very much available, and it is a very good method for removing the water hardness. So with that, I'll take your leave, and I have been getting comments to post the video on lime soda process and alkalinity of water. So very soon I'll be uploading these two videos. Keep liking and subscribing the channel. Thank you.